I'll talk you through the journey this painting took to become a field of flowers. Okay, let's get started. Hello and welcome. This is Betty with Betty Franks Art, and thanks for being here today. I'm working on a 36 by 36 by 1.5 inches on the side canvas, and I'm getting started with my mark making. This is a process where I just loosen up and kind of make a connection with the canvas, also obliterating that really white canvas staring back at me. So this part of the process I love because anything goes, any mark goes. It's just loosening up. These marks are not going to show at the end. I love it as being part of my process to get started. And then the second part of my process is, or I should say the next part is adding black paint. And this paint I've actually mixed in with a number of other colors to create not just, it's not a pure black, it's got a little bit of depth to it. Although from this angle, it's really hard to see that. And there I was using a tool to just start scratching right into that wet paint so I can create some texture. And here I took my brush, I just wiped off some of that black and went right into white to create some gray. The paints that I love to use are Nova Color paints, and recently, a couple of months ago, I partnered up with them to create a bundle of paints called Betty's Bundle, and it is 15 4-ounce jars of paint that are my go-to colors, the ones that I like the most, like the one that I just scraped off there, which is the blue-green. That's included in the list. If you're interested, I've got a link down below that will take you to Betty's Bundle, or you can just leave me a message if you can't find the link below. I know it's hard to find when you are on your cell phone because I always have trouble finding it, but just leave me a comment down below and let me know if you're interested, and I'll be happy to send that to you. I decided to start off with some cool colors, so cool being the blues and the greens and purples. And I also like to include yellow, whether I'm working with warm colors or cool colors. And today, for some reason, and I don't know why, because this was actually filmed last year. Right now, we're at the end of May 2022. So this was filmed in 2021. And I'm not sure why I'm not using my usual palette. I probably was working on something before, and it might be warm colors that are still wet on my palette on my table. So I have these little bowls and different Tupperware containers that I can use so that I can mix colors within them instead of on my table. Because I do come across situations where I'm trying to switch out colors, but that palette that is on my table is still too wet. I could dry it, I guess, with the hair dryer, but I don't even have patience for that sometimes. I like to just move right on into the next piece that I want to work on. Now I'm shaking out my brushes because they were in water, and I just want to remove some of that wet paint. I'm sorry, some of that water, not wet paint. Now on this part of the process, I like to just add a whole bunch of paint in the similar colors. So of course here working with the cooler colors. And the purpose of that is to start building up layers. I have this love for layers, and to me, layers create so much depth and interest to a painting. And that's just part of my process. I absolutely love seeing, those little bits and pieces of a painting that is underneath the final painting. Because this was filmed last year, I am in my old studio. I have moved since then. Actually, I moved a couple of months ago to a new studio, still in downtown San Jose, California, just a few miles from where the studio was. But I decided that as much as I loved this studio, I mostly loved it Well, in terms of weather, I loved it during only certain times of the year. There is no heating or air conditioning. It is an old canning building that was built many, many years ago. And these studios were built after the canning business, shut down. And so there is no ceiling on my studio. The ceiling opens up to the rafters above where there is natural light coming in. And so, as you can guess, although it doesn't get that cold in California, it still does get pretty cold. I think my lowest in the studio when I was actually creating was around 45 degrees, 48 degrees, somewhere in there. It was really chilly. So, of course, I've got my ski jacket on and or puffy, what I called my puffy jacket, sweats, several layers, and my little heater going as well. And as you can imagine, with the heater going, without the ceiling, it's really hard to contain that heat within the space. So that was one of the reasons I moved. Another reason being that because there's no ceiling, you hear everybody else around you, including the folks who actually love to blare their music, and not really my favorite music. So that didn't work out so well for me either. And the third reason being that at some point earlier or late last year, there were some broken windows and pigeons got in. And so my last reason was I got tired of the pigeon poop all over my studio. So those were my top 3 reasons for wanting to move. Okay, I'm just working through this piece. I'm not talking too much about it because here I'm just making my marks, adding just this layer is pretty much anything goes. You can see some larger elements, some smaller elements in terms of marks that I've made with my paint. That is just, I don't think they end up showing in the end, but I'm already kind of thinking about composition in a sense. And I'm coming back in here with some dark color again. Oh, it looks like I had some purple left in that jar that I added some water, not water, but white paint to it so that I can finish using that up. As these jars get to the end, they start to dry out more. And so anything that I can add to it helps extend that so that I can finish using it. There's nothing worse than wasting paint by having it dry out in the jar. And unfortunately, it's happened to me where I don't get to it soon enough and I forget about it. And then it just ends up drying out so much that I just can't even use it. And that just makes me sad. I'm loving the purple with the teal colors. And as I mentioned, I do like to add yellow. And here, this yellow seems to have a little bit of that, maybe blue-green in it, a little tint of a color, not just the pure yellow. There's several yellows that I use, and honestly, I don't like any of them straight out of the jar. I usually end up mixing them together. Going back to my studio space, so I absolutely love my new studio space, although it took me a while to adjust. It took me well over a month or so, just because it was new, everything wasn't laid out the way that I got used to, and I just needed to, take the time to adjust to it. Feeling much more adjusted to it now, creating a lot more, and really enjoying my time there. Even when I was trying to adjust, I was enjoying my time there. I just wasn't quite in that painting groove yet. But these past couple of weeks, I've been painting a lot more and super happy with the outcome and just my time there. And it has air conditioning, it has heating. What else does it have? I have my own bathroom, which I was super excited to get. And I've got a little kitchenette. Now, the sink in the kitchenette isn't all that big, but that was kind of a sacrifice I needed to make. Ideally, I would have loved to have one of those big sinks, but there's no space for that. So I am making do with what I have. And what I have is super fabulous. So no complaints about that. I am really excited to be in that space. And it's just a tiny bit bigger than what I have here. So I was able to bring everything in. But what's interesting is that I actually combined my studio, my garage studio at home, with my large downtown studio. And by combining the two, didn't realize how much of a squeeze that was going to be, trying to put all of that into one space. But it's working. It's a little bit tighter than I had hoped it would be. What I loved about this space where I'm creating this piece right now is it's just for my large pieces of art. And so I have a lot of open space within it. And I really miss that. All right, I'm still here working on my cool colors, adding some larger elements and some smaller ones. And the more I do on this at this stage, the more choices I'll have later in terms of what I want to still have show and what I want to cover up. And here I've grabbed my mark making tools again, and I'm going to, I think a lot of it is dry. It is summertime when I created this. As you can tell, I'm wearing my tank top, and so it's pretty warm in the studio. And the paint, because I don't put on really thick layers of paint, it dries fairly quickly. And that's one thing I love about creating during the summer months, is letting it dry very fast. As you know, I don't have a whole lot of patience waiting for paint to dry. So I'm using a variety of different mark making tools. If you're interested in them, check out the link down below and leave me a message if you can't find my link, but it's a link to all of my favorite art supplies. Okay, now I'm coming back and I'm not sure, I think this is a different day. No, I'm sorry, I think this is the same day, and I think I just took a break and let it dry a little bit more. Now I'm coming in with some warm colors. I'm inspired by my love for fields of flowers. So when I'm creating, that's what I have in the back of my mind, or the that's always on my mind as I'm creating these pieces. So you'll see marks that resemble flowers, or not sure what those orange ones are on the right side that I just did. Those certainly don't resemble flowers, but don't know what was going through my head at the time. I'm just looking at it now and thinking, oh, interesting. I don't think that shows up at the end. So I've got different shapes that are representing flowers, or they could be representing, I also love old fences, especially the ones that are falling down. I love stepping stones. I love trees. I love different parts of the flower. I love leaves as well. So a lot of those end up showing up in my artwork in one form or another. That being said, those orange marks on the side could be, I don't know, part of a fence. I don't know. Kind of looks like that. So coming in with these warm colors, I'm using orange, reds, pinks, and everything in between. And I'll probably be coming back in with some yellow as well. So this is the part where you can't be afraid to cover up what you've done before, because that's the way that I build up my layers and build up a lot more interest in the painting, by adding those different layers and covering things up and letting things show through. Now, this part's a little unusual for me to come in with a dark color, but I think I ended up covering up too much in that first layer. And I guess I shouldn't say it's unusual for me to come in with a dark color. There are times that I end up doing that. I'd like to try to do that as early in the process as possible so that I can create more depth with it, instead of doing it at the very end and where it kind of looks like it's floating right on top, instead of adding depth to the painting. Now I've got looks like a paper plate, so my palette must still be wet over there with something else. I much prefer using my palette. I have a lot more space to spread out paint and mix colors as I go. I really love dipping one color into the next color into the next color, and that just helps me harmonize my colors. So those marks that I just made there going up the right side in that gray represent my love for stepping stones. If you're on social media, you can certainly find me there as well, on Facebook and Instagram, besides being here on YouTube. And you can also find me on Pinterest. Now I'm coming in with some cool colors again. So I guess I'm calling it done with those warm colors. Nope. Well, yep, I've got greens going on. So it could be that I'm just, in this case, my mind was kind of thinking in the sense of I'll use these warm colors more of accents and create more of a painting in these greens and blues. And so when I set out to create a painting, I really don't know what it's going to look like in the end, but I will sometimes say to myself, oh, let me try something like this, meaning like, okay, maybe just a few colors or maybe more colors, or like this. How about a big shape in here? So I added a couple of large shapes. They don't end up showing up at the very end because they just simply didn't work with the painting. But, I try different things as I go to see what's going to work and what's not going to work. So I don't know what it's going to look like in the end. I can just kind of put out there my intentions in the moment, which of course sometimes completely change. I could say to myself, oh, I'd like to do a warm painting. But once I get going, it may just take on a whole new direction. And that's where, being an intuitive painter, you go with the flow. You see where that painting is going to take you. And when I say that, it's, sounds kind of woo-woo sometimes by saying things like that. But what I mean by that is when I put down a color, it is going to inform me what the next color should be or shouldn't be. And I put down a mark and it informs my next mark. So that's what I mean by, the painting just kind of goes in its own direction without me saying, well, it's going to exactly look like this at the end. And it's what I love about creating this style of artwork, is that not knowing where this journey ends, but really having this love for the entire journey from start to end, and discovering lots of interesting things along the way that I don't think I could possibly do if I was to sit down and say I'm going to draw a picture of a flower. Now, certainly, drawing pictures of flowers is fantastic too, and there's a journey in itself there. But for me personally, this abstract journey is, to me, much more exciting and fun and interesting, and it's the unknowing, I think, that I love so much about it. Just not knowing where it's going to end up. Here I'm trying to bring back those larger marks because I feel like the painting's got a lot of small and medium-sized marks all over it, and it doesn't have anything really substantial where I can be drawn into that. The other thing that we've got going so far in this painting as I'm looking at it is a lot of the values are kind of mid-range. So if you're looking at a scale of 1 to 10 on values, they're more like a 5, 6, 7, somewhere in the middle. And so I will be working on my values and just doing this, adding those marks right there. I'm already starting to lighten it up. So I added some white to that, and so that's adding some lighter values now. As you figured out, I did speed up this video, but if you would like to see me working a lot slower, you're welcome to click on that icon below the video. It's an icon gear or a gear icon. And if you click on that, tap on that, you should see the options to slow down the video. Now keep in mind that my voice is going to slow down substantially as well. So you may want to turn off the volume and turn on the subtitles. And then speaking of subtitles, if your native language is not English and you want to hear it in your own language, if you click on that same icon gear icon, and you'll see the option to turn on subtitles, and then you'll have the option to turn it on in your language. So I've had folks asking me how to do that, or asking for me to have this in different languages, and that's the only option I can think of. I would have to be able to type it up in a different language to be able to use subtitles. So YouTube does that for you automatically, and I think it is an awesome feature to have, especially since my videos reach so many folks who don't have English as their first language. So I came in with some white in that lower left-hand corner, and then also that half circle shape that I've got going, adding some more circles here. That all kind of stands out as a sore thumb, but I'm still working through this. There's still lots to do to get through the end of the painting. This painting I ended up titling Endless Summer. Now here I've got some neutrals. I think I've got neutral. Oh, I need to stand back so I can see it better. I do like to introduce some neutrals to my paintings. It makes those bright colors stand out even more so. There we go. See, those white circles were just kind of an eyesore. If you love my style of painting and want to learn how I create in this way, I do have a a recorded workshop that's a video. It actually takes you to YouTube. It's over 2 hours long, and I'm creating on 24 by 18 inch paper. I walk you through my process. We do some exercises together as well. If you are interested, there is a link down below. And again, if you can't find the link, feel free to just message me and I will be happy to send you that link. You'll have indefinite access to the video. Like I said, it's here on YouTube with a private link, and you'll be able to watch it the way you're watching this right now. And also you'll be able to turn on subtitles if you would prefer it in a different language. There I did some drips going down, and then I cleaned them up, not entirely, probably hard to see from here, but I cleaned up most of them, but left some of them. So painting is coming along. It still has quite a ways to go. Here I'm using my rigger, which is a script brush. And I like the fine lines that it creates. I'm trying to introduce some more white to my painting, but everything I put on there just feels like it's sticking out like a sore thumb. And so that's why I sprayed that down and got rid of most of it. I think a little bit of it showed through, but not now with this other color coming in. I'm really liking the green that I'm using. And I think I use a lot of different shades and tints of it. Shades meaning I'm adding a dark color to it, which can be black or could be any darker color, Or tint is when you take the color and you add white to it. I tend to do a lot more tinting than I do shading. I love adding white to just about every color. To me, it brightens it and just makes it a bit more happy. If you are enjoying this video so far, I would so appreciate it if you could give me a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel so that you can find out more about future videos. But also, I guess you need to also hit that notification bell so that you actually are notified as soon as I release a new video. I tend to release them about every 2 weeks, and usually it's on a Friday. That way you've got the weekend to enjoy the video. When I moved to my new studio, I ended up taking down the plastic that is behind the painting that I'm working on, and also the plastic on my table, which you can't really see from this angle. I've got, it's 4 mil plastic, the number 4, MIL, and that stands for the thickness of the plastic. If you use a plastic like this, then you want a thicker one. And for my new studio, for the wall and also for my table, I purchased 6 mil because I did discover that when I was working on my table there, I ended up puncturing it and paint ended up going underneath. Not that that was a big deal, but I had that little area that was ripped all the time. So I decided to use 6 mil plastic this time. And I absolutely love it. I put it up, this one I've had on the wall for almost 3 years, on my table as well. I don't replace it. I just simply peel off the paint as it dries. The more layers on it, the easier it is to peel it off. So I ended up getting rid of this wall, and I know some folks have a hard time seeing my painting because of my painting wall behind it. And I'm not sure how to resolve that because I don't like to throw plastic away if I can reuse it for many years. So I know it's a little distracting sometimes. And for me, what I end up doing is when I get towards the end of the painting, I will take it off of this wall and put it on a wall without any distractions around it so that it's easier for me to really see it. But to be honest with you, I'm so used to seeing all of that paint on that plastic behind me that I don't pay attention to it at all. It's like it's not there for me. I think we get used to just about anything, and I've really gotten used to it over the years. Now it's starting to come together. I'm seeing a lot more potential here, that it's, getting close to the end. Although we do have a little bit more to go here. Another question that I often get is, how do I hang my canvas on a wall like this? And the way I do that is here in California, I'm not sure if this is true for everywhere, but we have studs in the walls. Behind the sheetrock are studs, and they are placed about every 16 inches. So what I did was I took long screws, I think there were 3-inch screws, and I put them into the studs so that I had the best, it wasn't going to sag over time. So putting a screw directly in the stud is going to give you the strongest support, I guess are the words that I'm trying to find. And so just on this wall here, I've got, I think, 4 or 5 of them going across. Now, sadly, in my new studio, they don't have studs in the walls. It's an older building. It was a medical building, and the walls have this metal metal like brackets behind it in some areas, and I think they're like every 12 inches or so. So it's interesting because I wasn't able to do my usual setup, which was kind of disappointing. I did have the maintenance crew come in and they put screws into these metal studs, but I have already discovered that my screws are sagging, and so that makes it a little harder for me to work on. I think what I'm going to end up doing is getting some butterfly bolts where I can really put those just about anywhere, because it has this mechanism that will go behind the wall that will hold that screw in place. So I've got to work on that because 2 of them are already starting to sag, and I don't like it when it feels unsteady, like maybe my canvas is going to fall. So that's on my to-do list. All right, coming in with some gray again, different shade of gray or a tint of gray. Those orange quote-unquote flowers that I had right near the brush where I'm at now, I ended up putting green over them. I felt like they were just standing out a little bit too much. And this is where I talked about, one color is going to inform the next color, one mark informs the next mark. So when I start working towards the end here, I'm looking at, what's working together and what isn't. All right, looks like I packed it up for the day, possibly, or hard to tell. I don't know, that canvas is still kind of floating back and forth. I've got a fan blowing directly on me, and I can tell that it's moving that canvas as well. All right, not liking that orange at all, deciding that that needs to go entirely. Easy fix. That looks like an Indian yellow that I've come back in with. Indian yellow with probably some white in it. Although it looks more like a mustardy yellow color. So that's a bit more subdued. So now based on that, I need to figure out my other colors. And you will see me go over areas many times until I'm happy with the way it looks. Now here, when I start flicking my brush and thinking, it's because I'm getting closer to the end and I'm trying to pull the piece together. There's still some work that needs to be done here. Although I am closing my lids. All right. Now we're definitely on to another day. I always like to run my hands over the painting after it dries just to remove any dried up paint that's sticking out way too far. I do love texture, but I don't like too much of it. Okay, what I did here is I did some work on this. This is how it looks now. And hang on, I'm bringing it back up again. Okay, how it looks now, and then how I think it can look. I want to add a lot more white areas. I felt like it was really missing that. And then there was a few other things that I'm also doing to it. Notice those yellow marks in the left side. I'm going to kind of take out what I have there, or enlarge them actually, because the size proportion to this painting wasn't working for me. So I'm going to make those a bit larger. So I did that just on my phone, my Android phone. Now, since I had done that, Android has done an update to their Photos app, and I just can't find how to do that anymore, which has been frustrating for me. So I'm going to just have to find an app where I can do some real basic editing. I'm looking at my phone. I just set it down on my table over there so I can figure out how far down did I go with the white paint. And I definitely have that fan blowing on me. It must be a super warm day. And one thing I just love about doing this on my phone is it makes it easier to determine what changes I want to make. Let me know in the comments below if you do this as well, or do you have some other way that you make changes to your painting without actually making the changes with the paintbrush? Love to hear any other suggestions that are out there. Like I said, I don't have this on my Android phone anymore, so I got to figure out what I can use or what other options there are. Coming in with yet another layer of white, because that first layer, sometimes I don't come in with a pure white. I add a little bit of color to it, and then I just lighten it as I go. And I think I had more of a light grayish color. So this is pretty bold step, coming in and adding so much white. But I felt like it needed it, like it was just too much in the mid-range of values. And then those 3 white spots in the center kind of connects that upper area with the lower area. Okay, now I'm going to figure out how to take out those green quote-unquote flowers. There we go. And I just wanted to make them larger than what they were, slightly larger. And there we go. I like that so much better, just looking at it from this, sitting at my desk and looking at my laptop. I can see that those shapes are working much better with this painting. Moving that color over to the other side. I'll often move color into several areas of the painting. Okay, here we go. Just showing what I had just done there. So I got that done. I think there's another area that I wanted to change the colors a little bit. Now there's a lighter value there, but it's not the pure white. There we go. That was the other area I was thinking that needed just a slightly different tint or shade of color. Tint in this case, because I added white to it. Okay, so I'm coming in and just making some marks. So I don't like areas to always be just pure white. I feel like they need a little something, but subtle. It doesn't have to stand out. And that's what I did there. I sprayed it down a little bit because I didn't want it to be too standing out too much. This painting is being enjoyed by someone. I believe it was in the San Francisco Bay Area. Trying to remember now, it's been a while. But always happy when my paintings find a new home. Okay, coming back in with a light grayish color over the white. I'm just not feeling like I like the pure white happening there. Oh, there's my daughter. I totally forgot she was here. That's so funny. I even did a quick review of my entire video and didn't realize she was there with me that day. So she was giving me some ideas because she was watching it from a distance. I think there I'm talking to her about what I want to do and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I don't remember why she was there that day. She doesn't come with me very often at all unless we've got some project to work on. I'm wondering if it was, it could have been when I was doing a workshop, and I believe that was in September. There, I love those drips going right over that white area. So she could have been there to help me get set up for the workshop. And I think that day I did a little bit of work and then we started setting up. Okay. Now I put it on my white wall so that you can, and I can, see what it looks like without all that noise around it. And it helps me see it a bit better. And after that, I decided, yep, we're good. So here I'm just taking off some of those nibs that are sticking out, too much paint. I'm doing my final mark making, so I kind of came in at a different angle, up a bit closer. Makes the painting look a lot bigger. It's still the 36 by 36, although looking at it from here, it does feel a lot bigger. I like to start with my pencil when I'm doing my final mark making, just the way I do at the very beginning. I like to start with a pencil. Part of my process, the method to my madness. I've got Prismacolor pencils, I've got Neocolor crayons, a variety of different tools that I like to use. And recently I did a video, actually I posted it a couple of weeks ago, on how all the different mark making tools that I like to use and how they react to water. I'm going to link that here so that you can check that out if you haven't done so already. My final mark making is all about that little nuggets of yumminess that you get when you walk up close. So I love my painting to be seen from across the room and to be viewed at in such a way that it draws the viewer in to want to come and look at it closer. And when they do, I want them to see even more interesting stuff when they come up close. So kind of the icing on the cake is what I like to call it. And this part you can put as much on or as little as you want. Really depends on the piece itself. Sometimes I do less, sometimes I do more. Depends on, if I feel like there's room to add more stuff, more marks, but yet not overdoing it. There I'm scribbling. I love to also come in and just do some light colored scribbles, and then I take an eraser and erase a little bit of it, not all of it. I just don't want that continuous line. I find it more interesting when the line is broken and it makes you wonder, well, where did that line go? If you'd like to see me do mark making up close, check out some of my videos that are the small art on paper or just small art. I'll put a link here for you. And that's going to, when I'm working small, you can definitely see me doing my final mark making. Hard to see when I'm working on a large piece like this. But I do have a video at the end so that you can see those marks. And then also I've got some photos at the very end. I'm just erasing some stuff. What I love about all of these mark making tools that I'm using here is if I don't like it, I can come in and erase it. So I'm not afraid to put down marks. I don't second guess it because I know that if I don't like it, I'll just come in and erase it. All right. So signing it with a pencil. Can't see because I chose that side, but a thumbs up. And then I'm not sure why I went back and looked at it one more time. That was kind of strange, but okay. So let's do some close-ups here so that you can really see what was happening. I just love zooming in and seeing all of those little marks that you can't see from a distance. There's a side view there. And you can see the history of the other colors that are underneath that are just peeking through in some places, like right there, a little bit of that purple. That purple didn't end up on that final, really standing out on that final piece, but you can see little, like right there, I can see a little bit of that purple peeking through. That's what I love. There's some white there with mark making. There's my signature in pencil. I love those gray drips. Oh, yum. There it is. I love the way it turned out. Endless summer. Okay, here's my studio view. Craziness going on there. There's some paintings back there. That pink one is in my dining room now. The other one's sold. And here it is. I think I moved this out of the way. There we go. Move the tripod so that we can see it a bit better. That one on the right there is available if you're interested. Quick view of my studio again. And this is my old studio. I sure do miss it. Okay, got some bonus going on here. Bonus little reels. This is me outside now, putting on fixative spray. So I like to use a fixative spray or even a spray varnish first before I do anything else. Here's a matte varnish by Liquitex. Lately, I've been loving the matte, actually for the past couple of years, because it doesn't have a sheen on it. And then this brush, looking a bit old and well used, well loved, but it's just a synthetic brush that I bought at the hardware store. Going back to the fixative spray, the reason I do that is because my final mark making contains quite a few of the water soluble marks, and I want to make sure that those don't move around. Okay, one more bonus for you. Here's a quick view of me wiring up the back of the canvas. I've got D-rings and plastic coated wire. And so I pull on one side, and then, I don't know if you caught that, but I pulled right up the middle to be able to take that and stretch it out a little bit so that when it goes to get hung up, the wire doesn't stretch out too much. So I kind of pre-stretch it. Here you've got all of the close-up pictures. I'm going through these pretty quickly, so you can certainly hit pause at any time to view them a bit closer, or longer, I should say. And here's a room view, and there I am, super happy with it. And super happy that you joined me here today. And again, you can watch videos here, subscribe here, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and hit that bell to be notified of future video releases. All right, folks, wishing you a super fabulous and creative day. Take care.